June the 2nd, 2015 marks the infamous day of the Smiler crash at Alton Towers, which resulted in two teenage girls named Vicky Bolsh, who was 19 at the time, and Leah Washington, who was 17 at the time, each to lose a leg, and 14 other riders on board to be injured. But how did the Smiler crash really happen? Because the media tend to cover this topic incorrectly. On Tuesday, June the 2nd, 2015, the Smiler was operating as normal. This day was surprisingly busy, as weekdays at the park are usually quieter. Wind speeds were also excessively high, with gusts exceeding 46 miles per hour. Gerstlauer, the manufacturer of the Smiler, had stated that the ride mustn't operate in winds exceeding 34 miles per hour. The Smiler opened the gates to guests at about 10 AM, with the average queue time for the day being over an hour long, with it even hitting 80 minutes at its peak. Although the park was only at half capacity on this day, the Smiler was still one of the most popular rides due to it being a relatively new investment at the time in 2015. The Smiler opened in May 2013. At around 1 PM, the Smiler experienced some technical difficulties, so the ride was closed to all riders. As the ride maintenance team attended the Smiler in order to fix the fault, the ride operations team took the opportunity of downtime to add a fifth train to the tracks. They'd only been running 4 trains so far throughout the day. However, the ride operations team never told the maintenance workers that they had added a 5th train. The goal of adding the 5th train was to try and increase the throughput of riders, to decrease the queue times, because as mentioned before, this was an abnormally busy day for Alton Towers. At 1:40 PM, the Smiler reopened its gates to all riders, as the maintenance team had successfully fixed the fault. As riders began filling the queue lines again, the ride operations team sent around this newly added train in order for it to cycle empty. Usually, on any roller coaster around the world, if a new ride vehicle is added to the tracks, it must be cycled empty in order for guests to then board. This is simply just to check that the train is safe to load guests. This is where one of the biggest mistakes were made. Although the team were aware of the high winds, they failed to weight this empty train with water dummies. The water dummies are there to ensure that the ride vehicles can get enough momentum to successfully complete the layout of the coaster. The mix of high winds and a lightweight, empty ride vehicle caused the 5th train on the Smiler to roll back. After 2 minutes and 13 seconds of valleying, the empty ride vehicle then came to a complete stop. At this time, a ride vehicle loaded with guests had already been dispatched, and a safety mechanism known as a block section stopped the train at the top of the first lift hill. Block sections are safety mechanisms to ensure roller coaster trains do not collide. As the maintenance staff was still on site, they had just assumed a ghost train had triggered the block section, which is not uncommon among roller coasters. The maintenance staff then visually checked and saw only 3 trains on the brake run, which confirmed their beliefs about a ghost train. In reality, there was no ghost train. The maintenance staff were just never told that the 5th train had been added. The maintenance team then decided to override the block section safety mechanism and release the ride vehicle filled with guests. As the train traversed the layout, it came into the same element as a rolled back, stalled, empty train, causing the 2 ride vehicles to collide. Alton Towers was fined £5 million after all 16 riders on board were injured. 4 riders on the front row were found to have serious leg injuries, and a 49-year-old woman was airlifted to hospital after serious internal injuries were discovered. But who was actually at fault for the Smiler crash? It is impossible to put the blame on one single person. The health and safety executive initiated a criminal investigation, which involved one of the ride operations team and a member of the maintenance team. This is because they had not been following basic safety protocols. It had been estimated by multiple external sources that 25% of the blame should go to the ride operations team, another 25% should go to the ride maintenance staff, and 50% of the blame should go to Alton Towers. But you may be asking, should I still be scared of the Smiler? The simple answer is no, and here is why. Since the crash, different safety measures have been put in place to avoid any incidents like this happening again. The Smiler was equipped with more CCTV cameras, Alton Towers staff redid the safety training, and it is now impossible to override the block sections unless you are a senior engineer. Lots more protocols must also be followed before this mechanism can be overridden. Gerstlauer, the manufacturer of the Smiler, also added a feature where it is impossible for the ride to resume operations if gusts of winds exceeding 34 miles per hour are detected. This means that it is impossible for the Smiler to ever roll back again, thus deeming it impossible for anything even remotely similar to the Smiler crash to happen ever again. The theme park industry as a whole is now much safer after this accident, and as time progresses, theme parks and rides will only become safer. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.